Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello all, welcome back to our course on digital accessibility, and as discussed in the previous sessions, we spoke about the WCAG guidelines and what are the the criteria for fulfillment, the compliance and all of those things. And we also spoke about at the end of that lecture that it would be good if we have some automated tools for evaluation to begin with, so that we understand, or as designers or developers, we know what are the failures or where is our product lagging. So, today in this session, this is what we are going to talk about. What are the basic evaluation tools, the popular ones, and what are the pros and cons of using them. And after this session, we will also have a tutorial of sorts where we will kind of upload the site or upload the application, and then it gives us an evaluated report of the accessibility. So, let us begin with again our POUR, principles of accessibility, and I think we discussed it in detail again in the previous lecture. And the WCAG guidelines, where we spoke about that how they themselves are divided in 4 chapters or 4 sections, again based on the same POUR principles: perceivable, operable, understandable and robust. And each section has a list of criteria, which also carries a list of techniques in order how to make them compliant with that particular criteria, what is the need for that criteria to begin with, what are the various examples in which this kind of a criteria is required. All of those things are there to understand it from a criteria perspective, or when to educate yourself basically. But for example, you are already using a product, you are already developing a product. So, there is also a faster way of getting around. So, automated evaluation tools to check the accessibility, compliance or errors or failures are very much available. There are some common or popular ones which we will discuss in this session itself. And then there are now with the AI based applications becoming quite popular. I am sure there are many tools available. We will not be able to cover all of them of course as part of the course, but some of the common ones we will cover, and you can get an idea about how they function. And of course, if there are several paid and free tools available which you can use at your own convenience. If you just like try to do a Google search or like any search engine for that matter, saying that okay, give me options for web accessibility evaluation tools or digital application accessibility evaluation tools, it will give you or direct you to various sites or various tools. So, let us try to understand what they are and some of the common ones, and what are the pros and cons for using those evaluation tools. First, so automated tools can play an important role in the field of digital accessibility, offering efficiency and scalability in testing. However, they are not a complete solution, and they come with their own set of advantages and disadvantages. Automated tools are a powerful component of the accessibility strategy, and they must be used as a part of comprehensive approach, but it should not be used as the only approach, right? You as accessibility experts, one should educate themselves on the WCAG criteria list to begin with, but this can be just a quick tool to assess your level of compliance of any digital given product in a quick manner, but it does not claim to be comprehensive, but it is definitely a part of it. So, let us keep that in mind before jumping on to the evaluation tools themselves. Let us also try to understand some of the pros and cons before we jump into using it. So, what are the pros? So, of course, the efficiency and speed, they are quite efficient, they are very fast, they can give you like a full fledged report of every page in say 10 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. Now, with AI based applications, it may be lesser, which saves a lot of time, human effort, where you have to cross check with each criteria, etc. It can be a lot of work. So, and this speed is crucial for very large websites where there is a lot of content or a lot of pages, or websites or applications which get frequently updated. So, it is not possible to keep doing it manually again and again. So, for that matter, it is definitely a very useful tool that it offers speed and it is very efficient. Definitely scalability, so they can be easily integrated into continuous integration or continuous delivery pipelines. So, I am sure you are aware of these CI/CD pipelines if you are a IT engineer or an IT based developer. So, these kind of products, digital products actually have, as we said, like continuous updates, or there is a continuous feeding or accessing of some server based data or other aspects. So, then that means it is continuously integrated or continuously getting updated. So, in that case, and of course, a large set of audiences are using it. So, in that case, using automated accessibility evaluation tools can be a very useful tool, because it can be enabled into large scale continuous delivery mechanisms as well. It can help in early detection. So, before diving into a full fledged deep analysis or an audit of accessibility of a digital product, people can do just like a quick scan and get an idea about what is the status of the accessibility of this particular product, and teams can just quickly fix some common smaller issues which are level A, or smaller issues like color contrast, etc. Very quickly, even before presenting it to stakeholders or senior management, etc. And it also actually reduces the remediation costs after launch. So, right before launch also, if those quick remedies can be done, after launch, once it is used at a very large scale, it becomes a little bit more costlier to do it or integrate it in the continuous pipeline for that matter. But although that is possible, but early detection can be more of a preventive method, which can cost much less to the company or the stakeholders themselves. Other pros consists of consistency and objectivity, although these tools, these web accessibility guidelines, if people are very familiar with and they are experts, they can provide a lot of information, help in a lot of accessibility compliance, etc. But human variability can occur, human error can occur during manual reviews. So, such kind of tools can offer consistency and objectivity in developing reports, etc. And then it also helps us in identifying obvious errors. So, for example, I think we discussed this earlier, that sometimes we may just look at the interface and feel, yeah, I mean this looks nice, or this looks, the color contrast looks fine only, because it seems like a high contrast. So, I do not think it will be a problem. So, but although it may be obvious that just by looking at it you are able to see it's a color contrast, but it may be failing the criteria by little small percentage. So, for example, if the criteria says 4.5:1, maybe the contrast is 4:1, but still legally it is not fulfilling the criteria, right. So, for those kind of checks which look obvious to the eye, maybe running an automated evaluation can help the designers or the developers just get an idea, okay, maybe it looks fine, but just a minute change in the color contrast can make it legally compliant. Similarly, some very clear cut WCAG violations such as missing alt text, which is like the very first criterion, can be very obvious, right. So, I mean, just by looking at it you may not be able to see that there is alt text missing or descriptive text is missing, etc. So, running that evaluation can help you detect them on time and fixing them. It can be a kickstarter for an in-depth manual search or manual evaluation as well. So, automated reports can provide a good starting point for manual evaluators and manual testers, helping them to focus their human expertise on more complex issues. So, I think this is a very important pro of using an accessibility tool, and this is how we should also look at it, that it is a supporting tool and not by itself comprehensive. So, a complete evaluation should always include human accessibility experts as well as accessibility tools, and then only it can become a complete comprehensive evaluation. Let us now look at some cons of using automated accessibility tools and why we should not entirely rely on only automated accessibility tools. So, it has limited scope and it can give you false negatives. I think this is very important to understand, that automated tools can only detect a fraction of all WCAG issues. They are not able to catch very complex or AAA level complexity issues, and they cannot accurately evaluate elements that may require human judgment, or like particularly around the understandability part of it, where cognitive semantic values or semantic understanding is needed, and semanticism is very much a human or psychology concept. So, what is the meaning of semanticism and why am I saying this? That because under understandability there are labels that, okay, so and so information should have some meaning in context of the rest of the page or rest of the website, right, or in the workflow itself. If it does not have any meaning, then it fails to fulfill the understandability criteria or criteria listed under the understandability principle. So, it is important, and many a times those understandability issues are very humane issues which may not be captured under this evaluation, automated evaluation software based tools. So, that requires human judgment. It cannot evaluate context. So, tools understand the meaning and intent, they cannot understand the meaning or the intent of the content. So, for example, it can verify whether an image has an alt text or not, but it cannot determine whether the text is meaningful, accurate or helpful. For example, if all the images on a website are just say alt text, right, there is no real meaning or no real words actually. Even if you just type alt text in the box of alt text, for the evaluation, for the evaluator tool, it is passing the criteria, right? It has the evaluation, it has the alt text. So it can only check the presence or absence of an alt text, whether that text is actually a meaningful description of the image itself. That needs a human judgment. Other than that, there can be false positives also. So sometimes, we spoke about false negatives, but there can be false positives also. So sometimes tools flag issues which are not actual WCAG violations. So this can lead to a wasteful investigation and fixing of non-existent problems actually. So sometimes it can give you errors which are not really there. So it has to be double checked by a human as well. Although with increasing AI integration, I think they will become more efficient, and all of these, the probability of getting a false negative or a false positive will also gradually decrease with more complex algorithms which is able to find understand the image itself, or find some semantic meaning, or assess the description, for instance, to some extent. I'm sure in the future these tools will also become a little bit more intelligent, but so far they are not as comprehensive and should not be used in isolation. Over-reliance, and I think that is where the last point ended, when we say it should not be used in isolation, that is what we mean, that it should be, the teams should not over-rely on such tools. Right? There's a risk of teams becoming over-reliant and assuming that that 100% automated pass means that their site is fully accessible, while eventually it may lead to lawsuits or fines, etc. for the company. So the company should make sure to invest in human experts who can also follow up with quality assessment of the accessibility, or employ services of an accessibility auditor for that matter, to assess their product, followed by the automated tool assessment. So that other than that, these tools are not really usability testing tools. They are just cross-checking some of the parameters which have quantitative thresholds. So for example, it can check whether so and so buttons or so and so text is the contrast against the background is 4.5:1 or not, because it has a quantitative threshold. Similarly, the size of the font or availability of alt text or not, the answer is a binary, right? Yes or no, whether it's not there or there. But it cannot really evaluate the overall user experience. Is for persons with disability, or whether the application or the website itself is providing that ease of learning, that engagement, that multimodal engagement with the content, understandability, or have an idea about what is familiar to the target audience, understand the context in which it will be used. All of those it's not able to do. So it requires expertise to interpret results. So it just generates a numeric report. We will see a few examples of what kind of reports it generates, and the results also need to be interpreted by development or design experts who understand what is, who have some idea about accessibility criteria. Only then they will be able to understand, because it says the number of the criteria. So it will say you violation of 1.1.1. So if you don't know what is the meaning of 1.1.1, or you don't know what is a WCAG list of guidelines, and you can go back to that list and see, okay, which one is 1.1.1. Without that information, you will not be able to even interpret the report generated by these tools. So, I think it is very important to educate yourself first, then proceed to use it, because otherwise it is very difficult to even understand what the report says. So, I think in the previous session we spoke a little bit about, we spoke in depth really about the WCAG guidelines, and it has been developed by World Wide Web Consortium, and it has been part of their web accessibility initiative. So, again here is the same link which leads you to the main WCAG repository. And this is a table which can kind of tell you a little bit about, we did discuss conformance level A, AA and AAA, AAA being the highest. So, A incorporates most basic web accessibility features. These should be followed for any website. AA deals with major accessibility barriers, and developers should follow standard coding procedure to satisfy compliance. So, these aspects may need code level changes. If it is not compliant at AA level, it may need code level changes for make it compliant. This one may be more CSS, HTML based changes, or you can just include a script which is there suggested in the techniques, and it will become the A compliant. AAA's conformance is like a good to have. If it is good, if it is there, it will enhance the usability for people with special abilities. It is not mandatory if the website could be compliance with AAA, but then if it is there, it will be more accessible. And based on this only we discussed, right, GIGW only mandates AA compliance, which is this level of compliance. If you have, again, if you have AAA, it's great, good to have. It will of course ensure good level of engagement, better user experience, better user accessibility, but AA is legally mandated. It has to be there. So, particularly, we will look at a few examples where government websites were evaluated, whether they are compliant to these guidelines. While automated tools are in this, these examples, we are only using automated tools for validation and report generation. No tool is completely accurate. So, I think we have discussed it in the pros and cons in depth, but it helps us give in giving an overview of accessibility compliance before diving into an in-depth analysis by a team of expert human evaluators. So, two of the most commonly used evaluation tools is, one is Google Lighthouse and one is a tool called Wave. So, in this example, 10 government websites in which their home page and 5 random pages have been evaluated, and automated evaluator is used on all pages, and their accessibility scores were noted. So, if you see the Google Lighthouse, it generates a report in the format where it gives you a percentage or a score, right. So, if it is 100%, it is fully accessible, it is 100. If it is slightly more than 90 or between 90 to 100, it is considered accessible. Maybe small issues are there which can be fixed. If it is between 90 to 80, it is partially accessible, and if it is less than 80, it is not accessible. That means it is not compliant with a lot of lower level compliance criteria as well. So these, say for example, Passport Seva and Make in India, these two websites were also evaluated. I am sure you might have visited both of these websites. So do you have any idea, or can you guess what the scores would have been for these two? I mean, they are one of the cleaner, good looking websites, right? So Passport Seva is sadly 66 and Make in India is very sadly 59, which is much lower than the minimum compliance threshold also. So now let us, I mean, since the score is below 70, that means it is non-compliant at a very deeper level, and then coding issues need to be resolved to make it accessible. So, as I said, the Lighthouse kind of gives you a score table for for each website. 5 pages were evaluated and kind of uploaded. So, if for each evaluation you paste a link in the interface and it generates a score and gives you a list. So, we'll do a tutorial after the session as well, but let's just try to understand what does a score mean before actually generating a report for our work. So, for example, in Income Tax India e-filing government.in, they had reasonable scores, only one page with less than 80. So, most of them, some of them are really good. So, for example, upsc.gov.in has reasonable accessibility. Similarly, Income Tax India government, or some of the pages are really low. So, for example, this EPF India has a page which is a score of 39. This is really like unacceptable. So, I mean, you can just evaluate and see which pages need more work. And so, as we discussed, so this is like kind of a report overview which is generated. Now you have to see that, okay, which pages need more attention, which pages need more number of hours. It can help you in operational division of your work or your team's work, and can help you develop priorities, like, okay, for example, page 3 has the lowest score, let's look at this first. Index page seems to be accessible, let's leave it for the time being, but this page is like very low, let's work on this, make it more accessible. Similarly, page number 5 in the EPF India gov.in has a score of 50, which is very pathetic, so let's go and work on that one. So, it gives you an idea of where to start, what to do first. So, if you see some of, as I mentioned, some of them are reasonably accessible and some of them are somewhere in the middle. Remaining are, some pages are very bad. So, for example, the Passport Seva, this page or index landing page is really bad. EPF we saw has a couple of pages very bad. Make in India, the landing page itself is very bad. Most of the other pages are very low. So, it gives you a certain sense of understanding of what to fix, which pages need to be worked on more diligently. So, this is a average Lighthouse accessibility score for all of these pages. So, this is like an average of the 5 pages. This is just a data valuation. So, UPSA seems okay, seems to be doing okay. India Post seems to be doing okay. Some of them more, I mean, Income Tax, MyGov. So, these can be reasonable, report generation and all of those if you want to present it to external stakeholders, or you want to make a report about a particular set of products of your company and present it to your senior management. I think these kind of tools can be really helpful. Second evaluation is a little bit more in depth. So the lighthouse gives you a set of scores. It also tells you how to fix the issues, but not down to each issue. So it can give you, it has a whole ARIA library and repository, but the wave tool is a little bit more comprehensive because it tells you a little bit more about what kind of errors is it. So the moment you add the link to the interface, it gives you like how many errors, how many contrast errors, how many alerts, how many features are compliant, how many ARIA issues, how many structural elements, right? And it gives you links to like missing form table, document language is missing, there's an empty link. So it gives you all of these things or details about that page. So it provides a graphical representation of the location of issues, which can be a very useful next step. Indicates all of the components of accessibility violation, but this is not really a comprehensive tool. We are not saying that all of the semantic aspects are being covered. It is just able to identify quantitative aspects like whether a label is missing or not. So if, for example, it says 0 errors, labels are there, but they are semantically not meaningful, still your website may fail accessibility evaluation by an auditor because they are not semantically compliant and they fail the understandable principle related criteria. So similarly, for all those websites, a wave report was also generated, and each page and the kind of like say contrast issues, how many were there, missing label, how many were there in each page or something, empty link, how many were there. So Make in India apparently has 218 empty links for some reason, although this is old data. This is not a new data, but yeah, I mean probably at that time they had a lot of empty links. So just trying to understand what kind of issues are more common in all of those. So contrast, which seems to be very obvious, right, but seems to be a most common issue. Empty link again, which seems to be very common or very obvious that okay, if there is something clickable, it needs to take you somewhere, right? If it is clickable and not taking you anywhere, that means it is an empty link. So then, or so you might have noticed a lot of links that you click gives you a 404 error. Why? Because it's empty. So so I think that gives, so these reports, they give you a decent idea of what to do and where to start. So WCAG violation, so for example, this is just an example. Your product may be violating a separate set of violations. So this is just all of these issues, what criteria they fall under, that is what the here it is listed. So for example, for contrast it is 1.4.3 minimum contrast level AA. Similarly, missing label, non-text content 1.1.1, which we discussed a lot in the previous class. Similarly, there are 2-3 more missing label criteria related to it. Similarly, for all the other, all text, empty button, empty link, link purpose is missing. So for example, errors related to missing label, all text, empty button is like a 1.1.1 criteria, non-text content. Again, for all these numbers, after you see the report, you have to have some knowledge of where to go, what to find, how to fix it. So you again go back to the WCAG library and refer to it and see the techniques how to fix it and then fix it. Similarly, AA conformance 1.4.3 contrast, 2.4.6 headings and labels, level A. So headings and labels, I think when you will see this criteria, for example, it is not just visually they should have bigger font or thicker font or color differences, etc. In the architecture, in the code, they should be labeled as heading 1 followed by subheading, subheading 1, subheading 2, because then the screen reader reads it accordingly like a heading, and heading labeling has to be there. Right. So, again as we discussed, all the legal mandates are around A and AA levels, and both of these level related criteria have to be fixed in order to make your web legally compliant with the mandate. So, similar, so let's like this is just one more example of like common issue. As we discussed, that visibly it may look like okay, it is decent contrast, but if it is not compliant, it will the automated tool will tell you it is not compliant. Proper color contrast is very essential. So, as per standard, color contrast ratio should be 4.5 for smaller text and 3.1 for larger text. So, make sure that it is there. And there are also other color contrast analyzers, so which you can search for. You can just type color contrast analyzers for web accessibility or digital accessibility in your search engine, and it will show you, because these kind of analyzers, as I said again, they are evolving and a lot of AI based tools are coming up. In fact, there are several plugins which are also now available for systems like WordPress or even Adobe Premiere, which is used widely for making the websites itself, the front end design part. So, there are a lot of such things, and even Illustrator I think has an inbuilt color contrast analyzer. So, all of these plugins are already available. So, this is just a depiction of a good contrast. So, for example, as I said, this one is 4:1, right. So, it looks like, yeah, I mean it is quite a good contrast, but it is just missing 4.5 by a little bit. So, legally it will again fall in the category of non-compliant. So, make sure that it is falling numerically, following the criteria to the T, otherwise the company or the product can eventually fail legal issues. Similarly, sometimes it's also just not about the numeric contrast, it is also about what color you are using. So, for example, numerically all of them are following the 4.5:1, but these two, this is something which is there on the road as well, black on yellow, the signages. White on blue is also very highly visible, but blue on green has low visibility despite the fact that it may have the right color contrast. And similarly, green on red also the edges become vibrating, which again becomes a little bit of a difficulty to be read. So, again here for example, buttons. So, few things aesthetically may look better to you, but it's not passing the required ratio. So, it should be changed to some other contrast so that it passes the required ratio. However, we can see that visually many a time, so it's again a trade off sometimes. So, contrast ratio, it is passing, but it is harder to read. So, there are again, as we were saying, there are a lot of usability aspects which also need to be looked at by experts and try to understand. So, for example, can we change the font here, right? So, if this color contrast is better, so that the required ratio is legally, as we discussed, right, for bigger font it is 3:1, for smaller font it is 4.5. So, if we can change the size big to bigger, so that it is legally able to follow a 3:1, because this contrast is already quite close to 3. So, with little tweak it can be made into 3. So, all of these nitty-gritty and nuances need to be understood by designers and developers while looking at the reports itself. So, to summarize, we in this session discussed the use of automated tools for accessibility evaluation. We spoke about the pros and cons of accessibility evaluation tools. We also looked at some examples, and we also looked at the two commonly used tools, Google Lighthouse, the link is right here, and Wave tool, the link is here. You can check out both of these resources at your end as well, and in the following session we will have a tutorial of sorts where we will try to show you how to upload a website or an application to both of these tools and use them and generate a report. So, thank you for joining us in this session, and thank you for sticking around with digital accessibility. We will see you again in the next session.